The rain fell lightly that October night, drenching the empty streets of the small town in the interior of Bahia. Detective Carlos Albuquerque was used to answering strange calls, but this one in particular sent a chill down his spine. The voice of the police officer on the line sounded shaky. "Sir, we found another one, and this time, there's no explanation." He accelerated the police car towards Aldridge Street. He stopped in front of the house at number 23, an old residence that had been abandoned for over 20 years. Since 1998, that house had been the center of dark rumors. First, a family had disappeared without a trace. Years later, a group of teenagers who went there to challenge the legend left distraught. Whatever had happened that night, no one had ever been able to explain. Now, in 2025, there was a new mystery. Inside the house, they found the body of a man whose identity no one knew. He was standing in the middle of the living room, as if he had been frozen in time. His eyes were wide, his mouth hanging open. There were no signs of violence, no injuries, no clues as to how he had gotten there. Stranger still, on the wall behind him was a sentence scrawled, as if it had been scratched with his own fingernails. "I'm not the last." Detective Albuquerque felt a deep chill. He had seen many things in his career, but that scene left him uneasy. The security cameras on the street showed that no one had entered or left the house in the last 72 hours. How had that man ended up there? The forensics team collected fingerprints and, a few hours later, came the most disturbing revelation. The body belonged to a man named Hugo Vasconcellos, who had disappeared exactly 25 years ago. The same year that the first family disappeared from the house. "This doesn't make sense," muttered the detective, staring at the criminal record. Hugo had disappeared in 1998, and now he was there, without having aged a single day. In the following days, Albuquerque revisited the old files. He discovered that, before the family disappeared, the last contact they had had was with a man named Hugo Vasconcellos. The police at the time were never able to prove anything against him. Now the suspect himself appeared frozen in the same place, untouched by time. How was this possible? That was when the detective's phone rang. It was the coroner. "Carlos, I need you to come here now." When he arrived at the morgue, he found the forensics team pale, as if they had seen a ghost. "What happened?" he asked, already sensing the tension in the air. The coroner swallowed hard before answering. The body disappeared. Carlos felt the weight of silence fill the room. Hugo Vasconcellos' body had simply disappeared from the refrigerated chamber during the night. The security cameras showed no one entering or leaving. And then came the latest discovery. On the inside glass of the chamber where the body had been stored, there were fingernail marks. And a new sentence, written in the vapor of the ice. "I told you so." The night was dense, and the fog crept across the deserted road as if it had a life of its own. Police Chief Enrique Vasconcellos drove slowly, listening to the radio in his patrol car. That stretch, known as Cova dos Lamentos, had been the scene of countless legends and unexplained disappearances over the years. An urgent call came over the radio. "Police, we found an abandoned car on Cova dos Lamentos. Engine running, headlights on, but no one inside." Enrique sped off. When he arrived, he saw the vehicle, a black sedan, apparently intact, with the doors unlocked. The strangest thing was the cell phone on the driver's seat, recording a video. He picked up the device and pressed play. The footage showed a woman driving. She was mumbling something about "he's coming," constantly looking in the rearview mirror. Suddenly, a strange whisper echoed in the recording and the screen went black. The footage ended there. There was no sign of the woman anywhere. In the following days, the investigation took an even more disturbing turn. The car belonged to Ana Luisa Ferez, who had disappeared exactly 10 years ago on that same stretch of road. The most disturbing thing? Her cell phone had recorded the video that night. How was that possible? The search is intensified, but without any concrete answers. Until, a week later, another car was found in the same condition. Another video, the same frightened voice. This time, the woman was whispering something different. "He found me." Enrique felt a shiver run down his spine. As he analyzed the videos side by side, he noticed a terrifying detail. In the reflection of the rearview mirror, a dark figure appeared for a split second, with bright eyes and a distorted smile. But the worst was yet to come. The next night, as he was reviewing the evidence, his phone buzzed. A video notification. It was a recording, taken from the back seat of his own car. The night was dense, and the fog crept across the deserted road as if it had a life of its own. Police Chief Enrique Vasconcellos drove slowly, listening to the radio in his patrol car. That stretch, known as Cova dos Lamentos, had been the scene of countless legends and unexplained disappearances over the years. An urgent call came over the radio. "Police, we found an abandoned car on Cova dos Lamentos. Engine running, headlights on, but no one inside." Enrique sped off. When he arrived, he saw the vehicle, a black sedan, apparently intact, with the doors unlocked. The strangest thing was the cell phone on the driver's seat, recording a video. He picked up the device and pressed play. The footage showed a woman driving. She was mumbling something about "he's coming," constantly looking in the rearview mirror. Suddenly, a strange whisper echoed in the recording and the screen went black. The footage ended there. There was no sign of the woman anywhere. In the following days, the investigation took an even more disturbing turn. The car belonged to Ana Luisa Ferez, who had disappeared exactly 10 years ago on that same stretch of road. The most disturbing thing? Her cell phone had recorded the video that night. How was that possible? The search is intensified, but without any concrete answers. Until, a week later, another car was found in the same condition. Another video, the same frightened voice. This time, the woman was whispering something different. "He found me." Enrique felt a shiver run down his spine. As he analyzed the videos side by side, he noticed a terrifying detail. In the reflection of the rearview mirror, a dark figure appeared for a split second, with bright eyes and a distorted smile. But the worst was yet to come. The following night, as he was driving around the area where the events had happened, his cell phone vibrated. A video notification. It was a recording, taken from the back seat of his own car. Enrique turned around quickly, his heart racing. Nothing. The car was empty. But the feeling that someone was watching him was suffocating. He played the video with shaking hands. The recording showed himself driving, exactly as he had done at that moment. Then, in the reflection of the rearview mirror, he saw it. The bright eyes. The distorted smile. Right behind him. The cell phone screen went blank, and the police car radio crackled with interference. The last thing heard on that frequency was a drawn-out whisper. "Now, it's your turn." Police Chief Renata Moreira had dealt with all kinds of crimes, but none compared to the case that would take her to House 173 on Rua São Bento. It was an old building, made of bricks darkened by time, and in recent months, neighbors had reported strange sounds coming from inside. The problem? The house had been abandoned for over 20 years. That morning, an urgent call came to the police station. 2 police officers who were on night patrol swore they had seen lights flashing in the house and heard muffled screams. But when they broke down the door, they found only dust and silence. The strangest thing? The only window in the master bedroom was locked from the inside, and the room was covered in handprints on the wall. Renata arrived at the scene accompanied by expert Carlos. The smell of mold filled the air, and the floorboards creaked underfoot. In the narrow hallway, they found an old framed photo. It showed a family, a man with a stern expression, a woman with a sad look, and a girl holding a teddy bear. On the back of the photo, an inscription, "Sorry, Dad. I tried to run away." As they entered the room, they felt a shiver run down their spines. The room seemed colder than the rest of the house. The dust on the floor revealed small footprints, as if someone was still walking around there. The police officer turned on the flashlight and noticed a disturbing detail. On the wardrobe mirror, there was a single word written in the dust: "Help." Carlos swallowed hard and tried to rationalize the situation, but something inside him told him that it was not the work of time. Just as he turned to leave, a dull thud echoed behind them. The bedroom door slammed shut. The handle turned by itself, as if someone was trying to get in. Renata pulled out her gun and ordered whoever was there to identify themselves. No response. Only the sound of heavy breathing coming from the dark corner of the room. The expert illuminated the place with the flashlight, revealing a hunched shadow next to the wardrobe. The police officer held her breath. It was then that the door opened by itself, revealing an empty hallway. When they returned to the police station to check the old records of the house, they discovered the terrifying truth: 20 years ago, the girl in the photo had disappeared. Her father claimed that she had run away, but neighbors suspected that he had locked her in her room until she died. Her body was never found. That same night, when reviewing the photos taken by the forensics team, Renata froze. In one of them, captured in the dusty mirror, there was a reflection. That of a girl holding a teddy bear. In the following days, the police officer became obsessed with the case. She returned to the house several times, trying to understand what had happened there. On one of these visits, she found a secret compartment in the bedroom floor. Inside it, a wooden box covered in dust. When she opened it, she felt a deep chill. Inside, there was the teddy bear from the photo, along with a children's diary. The last pages were blurred, but one sentence was still legible: "He comes to get me every night. I try to run away, but he always finds me. If anyone reads this, please help me." Renata felt a presence behind her. She turned quickly, but there was no one there. Only a soft whisper in the air, carried by the cold wind in the room: "You found me. Now, help me get out of here." The next morning, Renata requested a new search of the property. They dug up the floor and, a few meters below, found small bones wrapped in a faded children's dress. The case was closed as a solved case, but Renata knew that night, it wasn't just a body that she found. Something remained there, waiting. And, somehow, she knew that it wasn't the last time that door would close on its own. Detective Alvaro Mendonça had worked on strange cases before, but nothing compared to the call he received that rainy November night. The phone rang a little after 2 in the morning. On the other end of the line, a police officer on duty spoke in a shaky voice. "Sir, I received a report about House 606 on Rua das Acacias. A lady called 190 saying she saw a girl inside the house. But this house has been abandoned for over 30 years. Alvaro frowned. He knew the story of that house. In the early 1990s, an entire family disappeared there, leaving behind only furniture covered in dust and a radio that mysteriously played by itself from time to time. The case was never solved. When he arrived at the scene, he found a police car parked in front of the rusty gate. The police looked at the house without daring to enter. Alvaro, already accustomed to strange situations, turned on the flashlight and pushed the door, which creaked disturbingly. The air was heavy, the smell of mold mixed with something metallic. Dried blood? The wood creaked beneath his feet as he climbed the stairs, sending a chill down his spine. In the hallway on the second floor, he saw something that made him hold his breath, small footprints, as if a barefoot child had recently passed by. He followed the marks to a room at the end of the hallway. The door was ajar. Alvaro pushed it open cautiously and, in the center of the room, he saw a rocking chair that moved by itself. "Is anyone here?" he asked, keeping his hands steady on the gun. No answer. Only a little far away a sound of something scratching the wood. Turning the flashlight to the corner of the room, he saw it. A girl in a white dress, black hair covering her face, had her back to him. On the wall, she scratched words repeatedly, "He will come back." Alvaro felt a lump in his throat. He took a step forward, but at the same moment, the girl turned around quickly. Her eyes were completely black. A cold shiver ran through his body, and before he could react, all the flashlights went out. The detective drew his gun and turned the flashlight on again. But the girl had disappeared. In the place where she had been, only a dirty teddy bear remained and, right below it, a childish diary. He opened the yellowed pages and read what was written. "Daddy said that if I hide well, he won't find me. But he always finds me. I try to warn him, but no one listens to me. If you're reading this, please help me." Alvaro's heart raced. At the same moment, a childish voice echoed in the dark hallway. "You came too late." The door slammed shut. And at that moment, Alvaro discovered that he was no longer alone in house 606. Alvaro tried to open the door, but it was locked. Sweat dripped down his forehead as he looked around, searching for a way out. The silence was thick, until the guard in the hallway announced that something, or someone, was approaching. He swallowed hard and brought a flashlight to the doorway. Shadows moved outside, and heavy breathing echoed in the darkness. Then, the diary in his hand turned its pages by itself until the last entry, written in shaky letters. "He's here." At the same moment, a crash shook the house. The ceiling seemed to vibrate, and the bedroom door secretly opened, revealing the dark hallway. Alvaro, even though he was shaking, took a step forward. The sound of the rocking chair creaking behind him made his blood run cold. Without thinking twice, he ran to the stairs, but something made him stop halfway. At the end of the hallway, the girl was there again. Her white dress was now soaked in a dark liquid, and her black eyes fixed on him. "Please," her voice was an icy whisper. "Make him stop." Alvaro wanted to ask who, but he didn't have time. An invisible force threw him against the wall, and the last thing he saw before he passed out was a tall, distorted silhouette emerging from the shadows. Days later, the detective and the other guards were found unconscious by the rescue team the next morning, lying at the entrance to the house. He was pale, with his clothes covered in dust and a lost look in his eyes. When they asked what happened, he simply mumbled, "He's still there." House 606 was sealed off by the police, but local residents say that lights sometimes flicker inside. Others claim to hear children's laughter mixed with cries begging for help. Alvaro never spoke about that night again. But on his desk at the police station, the girl's old diary remains. On the last page, a sentence appeared days later, written in a handwriting that did not belong to the girl: "This never ends."